There is a silence beyond memory, a silence that whispers truths deeper than words. It does not shout. It waits, patiently, until we are still enough to listen. This is the doorway through which regression begins, not a flight of fantasy, but a return to what has always been. Regression is not simply a journey backward in time. It is a shift in vibration, a recalibration of the soul's frequency that tunes you into the forgotten echoes of your own being. When guided properly, you do not imagine. You remember, not from the mind, but from a deeper chamber within you, untouched by the erosion of years. I have seen it in the eyes of those who remember, a gaze that is no longer tethered to one lifetime. They speak of temples, of deserts, of wars and loves that history never taught them, and yet every detail carries the scent of truth, as if the soul, unburdened by chronology, tells its story with the clarity of light. Dr. Brian Weiss, once a classically trained psychiatrist rooted in scientific skepticism, encountered this mystery unexpectedly. A patient under hypnosis began speaking in the voice of another time, another body. What followed would not only shatter the boundaries of accepted psychology, but would awaken a path toward healing that bypassed intellect and reached directly into the timeless soul. What you see during regression, if you are ready, will not entertain you. It will transform you. It will stretch your perception beyond the borders of this lifetime, revealing that much of your pain, your longing, even your gifts, are not born here. They arrive with you, carried in the invisible bundle of your soul's long journey. The mind resists this at first. It clings to logic, to linear time, to provable events, but healing rarely lives in logic. It lives in resonance. In the moment you see a face in regression that you've never seen in this life but feel like you've known forever. In the aching recognition of a child you lost centuries ago. In the peace that floods in when you realize that death never took them. They are simply waiting for you on another plane. Regression is not about proving anything to anyone. It's about reclaiming the fragmented pieces of your soul that have been scattered across lifetimes. And in doing so, you gather strength, clarity, and above all, compassion. Because once you remember your own many lives, how can you judge another? You too have been the beggar, the warrior, the lover, the monk. You too have stumbled and awakened again and again. As the veil begins to lift, a sacred humility sets in. You realize your life is not a random fluke in a sea of chaos. It is a carefully woven thread in a tapestry so vast, so intricate, that only the soul can grasp its design. And in that realization, something ancient stirs inside you. The memory that you are not lost, not alone, and never broken. What lies ahead in regression is not a movie of your past. It is a mirror of your essence, a reflection of who you've always been beneath the layers of this incarnation. And so, if something in you leans forward at these words, if something within whispers, "I remember," even though you do not know what, then your soul is already preparing to see, and what you see will change you forever. If these words touched your soul, subscribe to the channel and click on the video that just appeared on your screen. It was chosen especially for you. I know you'll love it. The human mind is a master of forgetting. It forgets not because it is flawed, but because it is focused. Focused on survival, identity, roles and responsibilities, all necessary scaffolding for a life in this dimension. But the soul forgets nothing. It watches patiently from behind the curtain of consciousness, waiting for the moment when the mind softens and memory seeps in like light through a crack. When regression begins, it is not the intellect that leads. It is sensation, a flicker behind the eyes, a shift in breath, a tear that forms without reason. You are not imagining. You are remembering in a language older than words. You are traveling by resonance, by emotional signature, and each memory that arises, no matter how obscure or irrational, carries a vibration of truth. People often expect grandeur, pyramids, royalty, great historical moments. But the truth of past life regression is far more intimate. You may find yourself sitting beneath a tree in a forgotten forest. You may feel the weight of a wooden bowl in your hands, or smell the fire of a war camp long vanished. The soul speaks in symbols, in impressions, in textures and tones that bypass the logical mind entirely. Weiss discovered that healing arises not from the factual accuracy of these memories, but from the emotional resolution they bring. A woman plagued by lifelong fear of drowning relives a moment of death in a flood centuries ago. As she releases the terror trapped in that moment, her present-day phobia vanishes. Not because she learned something new, but because she remembered what needed to be integrated. In these moments, the walls between lifetimes collapse. You begin to understand that who you are today is not just a product of childhood or culture. You are the echo of choices made long ago, the heir of unfinished emotions, the bearer of ancient lessons. But this is not fate, it is invitation. Regression invites you to reclaim what was left unresolved, not with shame or guilt, but with grace. If you abandoned your voice in a lifetime where speaking was punished, perhaps now you reclaim it. If you lost love and swore never to feel again, perhaps now you open your heart. The patterns that limit us often began long before this life, and so the healing must reach just as deep. This is where regression becomes a sacred act, not just of curiosity but of restoration. You are not digging through the past to become trapped in it. You are retrieving yourself. You are bringing home pieces of your essence that have waited lifetimes to be seen again. One of the most profound truths that emerges in regression is that we choose our lives, not from the limited self, but from the soul's wisdom. We select circumstances, families, and even challenges, not as punishment, but as opportunities to evolve. What once felt unfair or senseless begins to shimmer with meaning. You realize that nothing is random, that every soul you meet has walked with you before. In this recognition, judgment dissolves, grudges fade, and a deeper compassion takes root, not just for others but for yourself. You see the wounds you carry not as defects, but as portals, ways your soul is calling you back to wholeness. The past is not dead, it is alive within you, waiting to be embraced, honored, and finally released. And when that release comes, it feels like freedom. Not the kind you read about, but the kind that reshapes your very breath. What if the version of you that you've been seeking has always been hiding behind the veil of your own forgotten lifetimes? Before we take our first breath, before we open our newborn eyes to the brightness of this world, something sacred occurs, a moment of divine intention. In that moment, the soul, eternal and wise, chooses. It selects the circumstances of its next incarnation, not as a punishment but as a pathway. This is the foundation of what many call the soul's contracts. Regression often reveals that the most painful moments in our lives were not accidents, they were chosen. Not by our human selves, who often resist pain at all costs, but by our higher selves, who understand that pain is sometimes the fire in which our greatest transformation is forged. When clients under hypnosis revisit the space between lives, a realm often described as peaceful, radiant, and filled with loving beings they remember. They speak of councils of light, of guides, of conversations before birth. In these sessions, it becomes clear that we do not walk into this world blind. We come with a purpose, even if we forget it along the way. In this pre-birth state, souls make agreements with themselves, with others. "You will be my mother this time," one soul says to another. "And I will be the one who walks away so you can learn forgiveness." These contracts are never made in cruelty. They are made from love so vast, it is hard to comprehend from a human perspective. Weiss shared stories of patients who, during regression, encountered souls they knew well, but not from this life. A mother in the present may have been a daughter in the past. A bitter enemy might once have been a trusted brother. The roles change, but the relationships persist, woven into the tapestry of reincarnation. Through these shifting dynamics, the soul learns empathy, resilience, and unconditional love. Understanding these contracts does not erase the pain of this life, but it transforms it. Suddenly, the betrayal, the loss, the abandonment, while still painful, becomes purposeful, not as a justification, but as a portal. "Why did this happen to me?" shifts into, "What was I meant to learn from this?" That shift in question can change everything. When people see their souls planning sessions during regression, they often weep. not from sorrow but from the overwhelming sense of love they feel. They see that even those who hurt them most may have done so out of spiritual agreement. This does not excuse harmful behavior, but it offers a lens of compassion. It softens the sharp edges of blame and replaces them with understanding. Sometimes we are the ones who agreed to be the teacher, even if that role required us to hurt someone. Other times we chose to be the student, to experience vulnerability, limitation, or fear, so that we might find our strength. The contracts are not chains, they are choices, and even within them we have free will. The lessons may be set, but how we learn them is up to us. Some resist, delaying growth for lifetimes. Others awaken early, remembering their purpose and choosing to walk the path of transformation with intention. Regression shows us that nothing is wasted. No encounter is meaningless. Even the briefest interaction may be the fulfillment of an ancient promise. The soul is always weaving meaning behind the scenes. And once you remember that you are not a victim of fate, but a co-creator of your journey, you reclaim your power. You begin to walk differently, not as someone lost, but as someone remembering. Every choice, every challenge, every connection becomes part of a sacred contract signed in the timeless realm of spirit. You are not here by accident. You are here by design. Healing does not always begin in the present. Sometimes to truly move forward, we must first travel backward, beyond childhood, beyond the womb, beyond even the memory of this body. This is where regression reveals its most powerful truth. Not all wounds are born in this life, and not all healing must be confined to it. During regression, the body becomes a bridge. A sensation in the chest, a tightening in the throat, an unexplained ache in the hands. These are the footprints of old memories stored in the physical form. The soul may have forgotten the story on a conscious level, but the body never does. It remembers everything. A man once came to Dr. Weiss with a debilitating fear of choking. No medical cause could be found. Under hypnosis, he saw himself in a dusty marketplace centuries ago, wrongfully accused and strangled before a crowd. As he relived the moment, the fear surged. But then something shifted. By seeing it, by feeling it fully and consciously, the energy was released. When he awoke, the fear was gone permanently. This is the essence of karmic healing, not punishment, not judgment, but balance. Regression allows us to witness the unfinished moments that still ripple through time. By bringing awareness to them, we break the loop, we complete the lesson, we let go. Some come to regression looking for answers to chronic pain or recurring illness. Others seek insight into toxic relationship patterns or paralyzing self-doubt. And while the mind often searches for answers in the present, regression reminds us that the roots can be ancient. A lifetime as a persecuted healer may explain a modern-day fear of visibility. A vow of celibacy taken in a monastic life may echo as sexual repression today. The past casts long shadows until we shine a light on it. The healing is not always dramatic. Sometimes it comes in silence. In tears that fall without a known reason, in a warmth in the heart as a forgotten soul connection is remembered, in the quiet certainty that what once haunted you no longer holds power. Dr. Weiss has shared many cases of phobias vanishing, depression lifting, and relationship conflicts dissolving, not through years of analysis, but through a single session of deep soul remembrance. This is not magic, it is memory. And when you begin to see yourself as a soul that has lived many lives, the way you interpret your current struggles begins to change. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What part of me is calling for healing?" That shift creates a doorway to compassion, one that allows you to meet yourself with understanding instead of judgment. Even relationships begin to shift. You may recognize your current partner as someone you've known in many lifetimes. That difficult parent may have once been your sibling, or your student, or your rival. Regression peels back the surface and reveals the sacred contracts underneath. With that awareness, forgiveness often becomes not just possible, but inevitable. And sometimes we discover not just pain in our past lives, but gifts, strengths that have been dormant, intuitive abilities, artistic talents, leadership skills. When you reconnect with a version of yourself who was powerful, wise, or deeply spiritual, you can bring that energy into this life now. Regression isn't just about healing wounds, it's about recovering your soul's fullest potential. The journey through regression does not erase the challenges of life, but it does place them in a wider context. It reminds you that you are not broken, you are becoming. That the pain you carry is not a flaw, it is a thread in a much larger tapestry of transformation. And that healing is not only possible, it is already unfolding. There comes a moment in regression, quiet, almost imperceptible, when you no longer feel like you're remembering something other. You are simply returning to yourself. You are home. This awakening isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with visions of ancient cities or dramatic lifetimes. Sometimes it's a stillness, a clarity, a whisper from within that says, "You've been here before." And even more softly, "You will be here again." Regression is not the end of anything. It is the beginning of seeing life differently. Death loses its grip. Identity becomes more fluid. Attachment softens. You begin to live not from fear, but from knowing. Knowing that nothing is ever truly lost. That every ending is a turning page, not a closing book. Dr. Weiss has often described how patients, after experiencing past life memories, begin to radiate a deeper peace. It's not that their lives become perfect. It's that their perception expands. They begin to trust the flow, to see even the painful parts as sacred steps in a much longer journey. They begin to live in alignment, not just with their mind or body, but with their soul. And from that place, choices change. You stop trying to force life to bend to your will. Instead, you listen, you align, you co-create with the universe, because now you understand you are not separate from it. You are it. And with that awakening comes responsibility, not the heavy kind, but the kind rooted in love. You begin to ask deeper questions. How can I serve? What can I bring from the wisdom of my soul into this moment, this lifetime, this body? You start honoring every interaction as potentially karmic. You hold more space for others. You judge less, love more. Because the lines between you and them begin to dissolve. Perhaps you've been that person before. Perhaps you will be again. Some describe this as enlightenment. Others simply as remembering. Regression reminds us that we are not human beings having spiritual experiences. We are spiritual beings, navigating temporary forms. Each body is a vehicle, each life a classroom. And the soul eternal is the student and the teacher at once. You are not who you were last year. You are not even who you were yesterday. And yet, something in you never changes. That is the part regression reveals. The timeless witness. The one who has watched lifetimes rise and fall like tides. That part of you is still watching, still guiding. And now, it is waking up. In this awakening, fear loses its authority. Death becomes a doorway, not a wall. And love, the real kind, not the transactional kind, becomes your compass. Imagine living your life as if your soul had chosen every moment for your growth. Imagine seeing every stranger as someone you've already known and loved. Imagine letting go, not because you're giving up, but because you finally trust. This is what past life regression makes possible. Not escape from reality, but a deeper embodiment of it. A life lived with presence, meaning, and sacred curiosity. And so the question is no longer, have I lived before? The real question becomes, what will I do now that I remember? Because once you've seen beyond the veil, once you've felt the threads connecting every life, every soul, every lesson, something inside you changes irreversibly. And that change, that remembering of, is the beginning of everything. If your heart stirred during this journey, don't let it fade. Let it lead you deeper. Subscribe to the channel and follow the next video that just appeared. It's not random. You're being guided. Trust that.